Hi, welcome to the Drama Free Living Podcast. It's Dennis and Lisa McIntee. Lisa, here we are again. Quick question. Why are you unsatisfied?
You know, that is a really good question. And a lot of it has to do with knowing what you want and knowing what you don't want. Because if you don't know what you want, then you lived unsatisfied because you're not meeting those needs.
Yeah, and so it's almost like clarity really kind of creates freedom. And I think you want to live this authentic life. We've said before where it's like you never want to climb this ladder to success and then go, oh my gosh, I'm on the wrong building. Mm-hmm. And many times like people get to the top and they realize, wow, it isn't everything that I wanted it to be.
And you don't know until you get to the end what even it is, unless you can figure out from the beginning, okay, this is something that I'm wanting, this is something that I'm needing, and I know in advance this is the direction that I want to head.
Well, I remember this statement. I don't even know who said it, but he said, you only live life once, but if you do it right, once is enough.
Yeah, that's a really good statement.
It is, and it's about doing life right. And what does that look like for you? And only you know what you want. And if you're not clear, I think you kind of get tossed around by what other people want for you, what other people think of you, or what other people desire for you. One person told me this funny statement. He said, you know, God loves you and I have a plan for your life. And how many times
do we submit to other people's plans for our lives?
Right.
And they're not even our plans for our lives, because oftentimes other people think they know what we need or what we want or what even our skill set is better than we do. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes other people do recognize our gifts and the gold in us, but it's only within us to figure out, okay, is that really what completely fulfills me?
And what's interesting, we ask people a lot of times when they're in the emotion, kind of in the drama, hey, what do you want? And what's fascinating is people sometimes look at me like I have three heads because they don't even know what they want. And I think when it's not clear to you, you can't communicate it clearly to other people.
Right.
I don't know if you remember this. This was another lifetime ago, but we were on a trip with a friend of ours, and I remember we were driving overnight back to Berlin back in the day.
Okay.
Oh, and
I'm trying to remember this.
Well, and I remember talking to the person sitting in the front seat because I really wanted his advice, and I was talking for maybe 30 minutes, and I just realized it's like he didn't really get it. And I said, well, is it not clear to you? And he said, well, is it clear to you? And I was like, no. And it's when it's not clear to us, we can't communicate it clearly to other people. So really it's getting clear on the inside. And clarity really is power. You live a powerful life when you live a clear life.
Yeah. Clarity is power. And what's interesting is as we're living our lives, figuring out what it is we need, what it is we want, and even some of the lies that we're believing behind it. We created a thinking tool called the trigger identifier.
Yeah. Why don't you go through it? Because that has been so helpful for clients to walk through. And really, truthfully, it's a tool you and I use quite often just to process through our emotions so that we're not reactive.
Right. So sometimes I do things that I think, okay, this is what I need to do, but it's not really what I want to do. It's what I think I need to do. And a lot of times it's because it's based on a thought of what I think you are expecting of me.
Okay, say that again because I'm almost confused.
Okay, so I do things and I make these choices and I think it's what I want, but it's not truly what I want. It's what I think you're expecting of me.
And how many people live that way?
Mm-hmm. So we have this trigger identifier tool. We had a conversation. We were going out of the country about a month ago. And we had this conversation and it just went south fast. And we were talking about we were needing to get some of our landscaping done and we were having somebody come over.
Are you going to tell a story on me?
I'm totally telling a story on you.
All right, give it up.
So we're sitting down like 5 days before we're leaving. I said, Dennis, can we just talk about the calendar real quick and what's coming up? I've got so many things on my plate between now and the next 4 or 5 days before we leave the country. And absolutely, sure, let's go for it. Well, I pull up the calendar and I'm comparing your calendar and my calendar, and all of a sudden I see 4 o'clock the night before we leave out of the country at, 6 in the morning, whatever. There is an appointment for the landscaper to come.
Say it isn't so.
At 4 o'clock the night before. And I thought, I kind of panicked a little bit. I thought, oh my gosh, there's this landscaping appointment. Okay.
Right. And I didn't help matters.
No, you
either.
didn't help matters. So then what happened was that was the situation, right?
Yeah, right.
This is the situation.
Yeah.
And then what was I feeling? Okay, so I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling forgotten. I was feeling shocked, surprised, and insignificant. And that's a whole lot of feelings to be feeling around something on a calendar that I didn't know about.
And it happened like that.
It happened like that.
Boom.
This whole thing happened in maybe 15 seconds. So then the next thing was, okay, so why is it bothering me? Right. Well, we're leaving soon, and I didn't know how in the world I was going to fit it in. Right?
Yeah.
So then the next thing is, well, what do I need? What is it that I truly need? Because I'm feeling frustrated, surprised, forgotten. What do I need? I need time to adjust, and I need time to re-Tetris my life to make sure that it's all going to fit. You know, Tetris, how these blocks are coming down, and I had to make sure all my blocks were going to fit. Otherwise, I was going to, what is it? It kind of explodes and you lose the game or whatever. And I felt like I was going to lose the game.
Well, and I think as we lead teams or even in our personal relationships, really understanding who that person is that you're working with or in community with, and understanding, because I've realized, Lisa, that you need time to adjust. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I have been known to kind of press and even press even harder when you've backed away. And really understanding, like, not just what I need, but really trying to understand what you need too and what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love that, but I think self-awareness is probably the first step.
Yep, absolutely.
Because if I'm not aware myself, I can't very well be aware of you and what you need.
Or communicate it to me.
Or even communicate it to you. And so then next is, so what do I need? So when I figure out, okay, what do I need? What can I do about it? Well, what can I do is I can recognize that I need a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And I can take space to back away, get myself back together. And also something else I can do is I can tell you, hey, when this stuff surprises me, I just need a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I don't need forever, just maybe 30 seconds or a minute to put myself back together and say, it's going to be okay. And then the last thing is okay, so what is the lie? What was the lie that I was believing that I went immediately to frustrated and surprised and forgotten? Yeah?
Right.
And the lie that I was believing was that you were arbitrarily making decisions for me and expecting me to follow them, and that I have absolutely no control of my life.
And the farther you went down that lie, right, the greater those feelings become.
Absolutely. So this is how we walk through a situation. So you have the situation.
Yep.
It's what is the situation? What am I feeling? Why is it bothering me? What do I need? What can I do? And what's the lie? Now, when you play it out in real life, the very first thing is there's a calendar appointment.
Right.
And then the very next thing is surprised, forgotten, insignificant. Right. And it's all based on the lie of, hey, I can't choose my life. I am completely not in control of my life. I don't know what I want, and I don't know that I even can have what I want. And so the lie really comes in right up there at the situation and the feeling, because it's that lie that's driving that feeling.
Yeah.
But walking through the trigger identifier is kind of reverse engineering it. It's like, okay, this is the emotion.
Yeah.
And here are all the 10 seconds I went through this whole thing. And we've used this for so many different situations where things just kind of went south and I didn't get what I want and I was unsatisfied.
Well, and it really is a tool for you to own your own stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a real key, is owning your own stuff. And so what we did for you was, we're going to put in the show notes the trigger identifier. You can download it. You can have it. It's really a thinking instrument that helps you unpack what's going on the inside so that you communicate clearly. And it really becomes this skill of how do we manage our own emotional state? Mm-hmm. Because I've realized, for me, the better I manage my emotional state, the better everything around me is.
Yeah.
It's almost like my circumstances change, or how I feel about those circumstances really change, or how I interact with circumstances. They can be circumstances that maybe are not as favorable or not the ones that I desire, but it really depends on how I interact with those circumstances or those events around me. And that really determines the outcome.
Absolutely. And just your relationship with it the lie that you believe around it, the story that you're telling yourself around it. But the interesting thing is we inadvertently communicate that to other people.
Oh, wow.
So when we were sitting down and having that conversation, the first thing you felt was my intense frustration and my displeasure at the situation. And I'm sure you were thinking, whoa, wait a minute. We talked about having an appointment with the land. Don't we want to get the backyard taken care of so we don't have a mudslide going on? And so, but it goes down the drama triangle.
Well, Lisa, what I really appreciate is as we walk through this, I did allow you to have that feeling. And I think in times past, I stepped in and tried to rescue you, tried to fix your feelings. And so we just want to encourage you. You can't fix other people's feelings, right? You cannot fix you can't fix your team's feelings. You can't fix your people around. You can't fix those feelings. So help them own it. And the trigger identifier is a way to really help people own it.
Right. And you cannot get other people's stuff for them. You can't get other people's needs met for them. They have to get their needs met themselves. And when you understand what you need or what I need, then it just walks so much smoother. And normally something like that we would just go into an explosion. We would spiral down and it would blow up.
And 3 days later, we'd still be fighting.
And we'd have put our walls up and then we'd have to bring it down. And it was all a matter of figuring out, okay, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? And how can I keep from being unsatisfied? Because in that conversation, I was extremely unsatisfied because I thought I have no control over my life. I cannot choose what's going on in my life.
And that was the lie, right? So we don't want people to live unsatisfied. We don't want teams to be unsatisfied. You can use the trigger identifier in multiple situations. It's really there for you. Second thing, Lisa, as we kind of think about like asking for what you want is, to live a satisfied life, I think you got to frame it around your core desires and your core drivers, really, right? Because I think drivers define behavior. And only you know what drives you. There's some things that we teach. We use the SOAR principle where some people have a big desire for significance, right? It's why they set goals. It's why they want to do great things. They want to keep pressing forward. And you just got to know that that's part of who you are and what you want, and not good or bad, but not everybody's like that. Some people need a little bit more certainty. They're driven by certainty. They need to know more of the unknowns. Maybe sometimes that's our relationship challenge, right?
A little bit.
A little bit.
So.
Yeah.
I have a higher need for certainty than you do.
And I like to just sort of step out, and I want to jump out of the airplane and build the parachute as we're falling to the ground.
And I want to know before I even get on the airplane that there is a parachute and it works and it's been tested 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. In that way, to realize, hey, we have different drivers, and to give people space to get those needs met. But you got to know what they are. Another one is this driver for connection. They need to connect. And really, Lisa, we have all of these drivers all inside of us, but really understanding why you do what you do is really the first step to really changing behavior.
And with these drivers that we have inside us, we each have them at different levels.
Yeah.
So I have all 4 of these drivers, but my need for connection, I do need connection, and I do need certainty, and those are a lot higher. Yeah,
and so one thing with these drivers, when you think about it, is that they're on the inside of you, and when you can communicate them clearly and say, hey, this is what I need, and almost tell yourself the truth. And not that I look to you to get that need met, but I just know it. And I know when I'm dissatisfied or unsatisfied, there's typically a driver the need is not being met in some way, some form, some fashion. And I think when you're really healthy, like I have a high need for change, right?
Which works great with my high need for certainty.
Right. Well, and when you think about it, I can't get that need met everywhere. When I go down to try to meet it with my team, it just confuses them. Right? How many times do I confuse?
It frustrates our team.
It frustrates them. If I have a new idea every 5 minutes, and I go, okay, we do squirrel, and we go and we haven't even completed these 10 other ideas that we started.
And so for you, with your high need for change, you need people on your team to hold your feet to the fire and say, no, we are not going in all of those great directions. And they are great directions. They're great ideas. But our team holds your feet to the fire and says, we're staying here.
Well, and I got to get that need met in another way. For example, how many times do I take a different way home? driving, right? Driving to the house. If we're coming from downtown and I'm driving to the house, I take a different way every single time.
Absolutely.
I never take the same way.
Or
it's too boring.
a different playlist in the different route, in a different vehicle, with a different pair of shoes on.
Yeah, exactly. And so I realize, okay, I can't get that need met with my team necessarily, but I have to get it met, and just realizing who you are and just being comfortable in your own skin. It's fascinating because the better that I get at just being Dennis and the more comfortable I get with Dennis, the better everything goes. I mean, it's business, personal, professional, every area of my life. The better I get with me, the more happier I am with me, the happier I am to be around.
Right. The more satisfied you are with you.
Yeah. And so we don't want you to be satisfied. Don't be unsatisfied, right? Why are you unsatisfied? Well, just understand what's triggering you, understand what your drivers are, and then at least we have a tool that we haven't talked about a lot called the passion process.
It's a good one.
It really is, and it really unlocks what's on the inside. And what I tell people all the time when we send it to them is, hey, here are 25 questions, and you can't answer them in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. They ask you things like, hey, when was the last time that you really cried?
And what does that point to?
Well, that emotion tells you some things that you care about. Mm-hmm. It tells you what is important to you, right? When was the last time you were angry? What are the 5 situations that angered you the most over the last 2 years? I mean, that's a great question to understand, hey, I really care about this. And then why was I angry? What about it? And help you unlock what's going on the inside. So it's really a set of 25 questions. We call it the passion process because it processes your passion and kind of puts it out there to go, hey, this is what I want. Because only you know what you want.
And these questions really are, we utilize them to unlock the things that incite us, that cause us energy or excitement, or the things that just cause us to cry or laugh, or that cause us to be motivated and to be driven.
And they're great questions to coach your team through.
Yeah.
Because when I understand what makes you angry, then I understand what you care about. If I understand what excites you, then I understand what you're passionate about. Well, and it helps me know your passions and let you be an individual, let you be unique.
And this is great for the team. And this is also great with our clients, and it's even great with our family. So with our team, when we know what one of our team members is just really passionate about, I'm thinking of Melody, for instance, when we're talking with her and what she really loves about talking with different clients and individuals, and she loves the conversation. She loves the face-to-face. She loves the phone calls. Yeah. She gets so...
It gets energy. You can see it in her face. You can hear it in her voice. She gets very energetic.
And so we know that we need to allow her as many opportunities as possible to go down that route and to interact with other people, because she brings life to the environments when she's with other people. It
really is fascinating. Then we have other team members that they don't want to be on the phone at all. They want to sit in front of their computer and just knock out work. Mm-hmm. Now, I think they're crazy.
Mark all those I'm all in. Checks and get the list done. And there's a lot of satisfaction in that.
Well, you know what? That's not you. That's different than me.
Yes.
And I think what we want to help people do is really celebrate the difference. Right?
We need each of them.
Yeah. And it's like your value is in the difference, not in the similarity. Mm-hmm. I've told people all the time, I married you because you were so different. You're so unique. You're different than anybody I've ever met.
And I'm completely different than you. I mean, we couldn't be more opposite, which is amazing because we're incredibly productive together, but it's also could be very explosive together.
Absolutely.
If we're not allowing that give and take.
And not being really clear on this is what I want. Mm-hmm. And I know what you want, you know what I want. And it's not that I have to meet all of these wants. You have to get your wants met in your own healthy way. I have to do it in my own healthy way. But just that clarity alone really helps direct our lives because we're very unique. And nobody can tell you what you want. So you're the best expert on you. So download the trigger identifier. It's there for you.
And the passion process.
Yeah, absolutely.
To go through and figure out what I'm really passionate about in life. After going through what we've gone through over the last several years with COVID and riots and just all kinds of unrest in our country and the world, I felt like my passion was just kind of smashed down and my motivation was smashed down because life was completely different and I was just trying to keep the ball rolling.
Well, I even think how we lead teams now is different because as people went through the pain of that, I mean, they call it the Great Resignation, but I'm not so sure. I think it was just sort of a realignment. People went through it and said, hey, I don't really want this for a career or for a job. I really want this, and let me try to pursue this. And I can't get mad at people for that.
Or even, I don't want this as my lifestyle. I don't want to leave my house at 6 a.m. and not get back until 8 p.m. And I actually enjoy being home a little bit more. And so some people have gone fully remote. Others have gone partially remote. What's the term? Hybrid. Thank you. I knew there was a term for it.
Yeah.
And it's all based on what we want to do with our lives, but then also how we want our lives to live.
And I realized that even for me, as we went through that time, we were talking about it on the drive here to the studio, that I really have enjoyed staying home. And there was a time where I was gone every week. And I don't want to go every week now.
You need to go about every other week or every 3 weeks because of your high need for change.
Yeah, but really getting clear on, hey, this is what I want. And it changes as seasons change. Mm-hmm. And now you and I are entering this empty nester season where our season of life has completely changed, where we don't have kids at the house and we have some more freedom in different ways. And so as seasons change, your wants change, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to do kind of a check-in. So the passion process, it's a great little tool to do a check-in, and we'll figure out how you can get that. That'll be in the show notes, so you can get a copy of the passion process also. Lisa, the next thing is I think we need to decide what we don't want.
Yes.
Almost like, what are the things that you don't want? What are the things that you want to stop doing? What are the things that you are no longer in your life? Now, this could also go for relationships, right? Because I think relationships are seasonal too. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lisa, are you still friends with people from the first grade?
I barely remember who was in first grade with me.
I can't even remember first grade, right? And so that season, I'm a different person than I was in the first grade. And so as the season of my life, even college buddies, mm-hmm. it's a different season in our life, and that served a purpose for that season. But now as we enter different seasons, there's certain things that need to be eliminated.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating too, because even 10 years ago, our life is different. 10 years ago, we had our kids were super involved in soccer. They were very involved, and all of our friends and relationships revolved around that activity and that stage of life and that situation of life and what we were going through. And, last week I ran into this couple that we were actually fairly close to. We saw them probably 5 times a week and had conversations on some pretty deep levels. And I honestly, I have not seen them for 8 years probably. Yeah. But it was fascinating because we were able to just pick up a conversation and check in and how are the kids doing? What are you up to? And it was a very easy, smooth conversation. But I don't see them 3, 4, 5 times a week anymore. And it's okay because that phase of our life is over. And so that would not serve where we're at today and what we want. And it would not bring satisfaction.
And one thing that as we continue to create this life, because it continues to change and it continues to evolve and almost get better and better. But as I go through circumstances or experiences, I always check in with myself and go, okay, I like that. Hey, I want to have that experience again and again. And there's other experiences that I go through and I think, I didn't like that. What do I do so that I don't have that experience again? And really and that's a way to take control of your life. And it's a way to use your past experiences to inform your future decisions.
Yeah.
And many people, they just live life on autopilot. Mm-hmm. They don't live life intentionally. And really asking what you want and really knowing what you want really helps you live this satisfied life and really an intentional life.
Yeah, and deciding what you don't want.
Yeah, so what is it that you don't want? And Lisa, I think here's the problem with life. I think life gives more life than it can sustain. Okay, so
you're going to have to unpack that.
Okay, so like this, Lisa, we've got these rose bushes, right, in our front yard, and they have all these different blooms coming up. But Lisa, if we don't trim them and cut some of them away, they're going to stay small. Right? But if we cut maybe half of them away, 4 or 5 of these roses are just going to bloom really large and really big. And so it's almost like this rose bush, it gives more life, like life gives life. And it almost gives more life than it really, the brand that can sustain. But part of our job is to go in and kind of prune these things so that like these 2 or 3 particular roses really blossom and come to full potential. And it's almost like that, I think, sometimes with opportunity. You know, one thing that I've dealt with is this fear of missing out. And the problem is you try to grab everything and do everything. And really, it's a sign of scarcity. It's a mindset of scarcity. But if you can step back and go, hey, these are the 3 things I want. And I'm going to cut away these other things in my life so that I really get these 3 things. And I think as people run their businesses, that's a continual evolution. Right. We've even seen that with our business as we continue to grow. I've had to cut some things back so that we can really focus on these 1 or 2 or 3 things.
Yeah, it's like the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
I am the kind of person that I could be interested in 15, 20 different things all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I cannot be excellent at 15 or 20 things. I don't even think I could be excellent at 10 things. And in order for me to be excellent at my 5 things, I have to prune back those other 5 or 10 things, because then I have as much life as I have activities and desires for. Otherwise, there's too many activities and desires and not enough life to fill it.
Yeah, and it's almost like deciding what the bush is supposed to look like. Decide what your rose bush is supposed to look like. What are the 3 or 4 roses that you want to bring to full potential, and then prune away the other things.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something that I've heard thought leaders talking about is creating a eulogy.
Okay, yep.
So creating a eulogy, it's essentially living with the end in mind, right? And so there's different ways that people say you could sit down and write a eulogy. The way that I thought was most fascinating is, first of all, you write down, okay, if I died today, what is it that people would say about me? Right now, today, what would they say? Right?
Yeah.
And I sit down and I think, what would my friends say? What would my family say? And it's a kind of a deep, heartfelt thing. And it takes a little bit of thought on, who am I today? And what's fascinating is when we live with the end in mind and when we do this eulogy exercise, it really pulls us into our future. I mean, it hones our priorities. It hones the ideas. It helps us create habits. And if we want to create habits and we want to hone in our priorities and on our vision, first we have to figure out, okay, where are we at? Where am I at today? And if I died, what would the people in the room say about me? And then you go through and you think, okay, if I die in 20 years, if I die in 30 years, what do I want my eulogy to be?
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing your first one and if I died today, this is what my eulogy would be, it's super important to be realistic.
Okay.
And to not be unkind. Because think about it, when you're giving a eulogy for someone else, it is not typically unkind. It's realistic, but it's also the best things of life, the best thing of that person.
Yeah.
And celebrating what that person gave. And the reason it's important if you write your eulogy for today is that we're going to compare these two. We're going to compare the eulogy from today to the eulogy in 30 years from now.
Wow.
And in 30 years from now, what do I want my family and friends to say? What do I want to be remembered for?
Yeah.
What is it that I want to have accomplished? And we sit down then and we compare these two and we figure out, okay, what's the discrepancy? What's the discrepancy between who I am today and who this amazing person is in 20 or 30 years that this incredible eulogy is talked about. And the space between that future eulogy and who I am today, that is the space between what is and what could be.
It's kind of that big gift. You get this big gift of space and time to go continue to develop yourself to become this person. So
absolutely. And then what we do is we break this discrepancy into bite-sized pieces. The discrepancy between what is and what could be, we break it into bite-sized pieces, and we just work on a small part today. So I want to be a world traveler in 30 years, and I want to speak 10 languages, right? Well, so what can I do today? What's that discrepancy? Well, I speak one language really, really well, and I speak 2 languages so I can get by.
Yeah.
So I've got a little bit more work to do. I can either step up and work on that, my second and third language that I speak, or I could start a whole new language. But I have to take a bite-sized piece because I'm not going to jump in and learn 10 languages tomorrow.
Lisa, as you're talking, I just had this thought is what are the words that I want people to describe me as? And just what kind of hit me as you're talking is I want people to describe me as a big giver, that I really gave of my life and my energy, and that I really cared. I cared about people. I cared about my family. And you know what I thought, Lisa? That really is going to kind of give me my growth plan.
Absolutely.
Right. So as I get up in the morning, I go, okay, how can I increase my giving? Who can I serve? How can I be a bigger giver? What else can I give? And then how do I show care? How do I show care to the kids, to you, to our clients, to people around me, to that server, to that flight attendant, and almost let those 2 words kind of drive me. So I think that's my big takeaway. I'm sitting here and I thought, wow.
And my big takeaway is the discrepancy between what is and what could be, and really truly figuring that out. And that's why we are unsatisfied. And because we don't ask for what we want, we don't discover what we want. But if we don't want to live in that gap between the what is and the what could be, we have to be clear on where we truly are at today and where we want to go.
Yeah. So listen, thanks for joining us on the Drama Free Living podcast. Download the Trigger Identifier, the Passion Process. They are tools for you. They're our gift to you because we want to be big givers for you. And so, Lisa, I think we're done. We'll see you next time on the Drama Free Living podcast.